How you doing today? It is Saturday, September 29th, 28th. Saturday, September 28th, 2024. This is my digital archaeology archive. It's interesting to think about how a lot of what we know about the past is from what people dug up, unearthed underground. I think that some of the archaeology of the future will be digging up some of these archives, these internet archives, these depths of data that have been suppressed because people couldn't keep them up, um, but that are somehow still archived in the Wayback Machine. So shout out to Usher, because we see that you deleted all your tweets, but nobody told you about the Wayback Machine. The Nigerian youth peeped that shit in like 2020 when folks were trying to delete their old tweets. And definitely again in 2023, I think I saw that. So I'm here to talk about the need, the urgent need for Black technology, for custom Black technology, and for more Black technological minds. I get real lonely thinking about and talking about the things that I think about in terms of what technology could do for us. And this series was inspired by that passion and that urgency, in that sense that as Black people, we need to understand technology much better. And we need to prioritize mastery of this field in a very deep and intricate and personal way. We have to get really familiar with technology and really come for at least a good critical mass amongst us. Obviously, there's no uniform prescription for every single Black person in terms of what you're supposed to do for the movement and for our cause of liberation. But when it comes to technology, there's a certain mind that tends to be inclined to technology. It might be a mind that is passionate about numbers, always thinking strategically, always thinking about solutions, always thinking about how to fix things, how to make things better, how to improve things, how to make things faster, how to make things prettier, how to automate things, how to beautify things with ease. I think I gravitate a lot towards technology because of a desire to accomplish a lot, achieve a lot with a little bit of effort. With my desire to remain feminine and soft and restful as I do work that liberates millions of people, billions of people by God's grace. And so I've taken a lot of time over the last few years to really cultivate a sense of awareness around what is possible through technology, through storytelling, through data. And really crafted and built a system that could support a lifestyle that I believe all women, especially Black women, should have access to, and it is a restful, and peaceful, and prosperous lifestyle. And that being a lifestyle that also cultivates you as a leader, if that is how you are so inclined, a lifestyle that at the end of the day, every woman is a leader in her home. She leads her children. And so no matter how you feel about yourself as a leader outside of the home, and I'm saying every woman, every mother, let me say it like that. If you think about how you show up as a leader outside the home, and look at that sort of in comparison, it'll probably reveal some things about you to yourself. But ultimately, what I'm getting at here is we need more women in leadership. We need more women to cultivate your sense of leadership, particularly with an understanding of technology, particularly if you are a science-minded person, if you are a strategy-minded person, if you are a solutions-oriented person, we need you in technology. So, I said I was going to talk about Jaguar, Wright, the music industry, and the need for Black technology through data. So my background, I've always been passionate about music. Shout out to my stepdad, who had like an amazing very varied, uh, quite varied music collection in our home. And it would be Saturday, we'd be cleaning day, and we'd be playing music loud all through the house. I love that so much. And those are some of the few times that I got to kind of loosen up and sing my heart out, when the music is loud and you're not really worried if anybody can hear you, Um, so music has always been a tremendous part of my identity and my joy. And it's just my culture, my practice. When I do work, there's music playing. Like the invention of the iPod and all of that stuff, that was for me because the way I depend on music in my life is bananas. In fact, the fact that my meditation music is not playing right now is just a sign that I was tired and I forgot it. But that's usually what would be going on. And I was supposed to light some incense too. Oh, there's so much I want to talk about. So Jaguar, right? So, I just let me just land on the point of Black women in technology, Black women who are curious about technology, gather here, let's get together. One of the things that I'm doing is curating resources. So everything that I find that is meant to serve Black women or Black people in technology, that's part of what we've been curating for the New World Haven Project, so that we can provide resources for folks who want to learn and want to advance their skills in technology. One of the things that I will shout out is Bevs and Devs on Spill. Yeah, I know that Spill is the Black Twitter. Spill is one of the best Black apps that I have come across, and I've had the pleasure of utilizing. I've been on some other Black apps, and they've been great, but none of them have been as essential for my daily, experience as Spill has become. And so I really want to big up them in terms of their visual design. Their UI is amazing. Their strategy, their go-to-market strategy has been pretty amazing. And just their community cultivation on the platform has been pretty amazing. So shout out to Spill, shout out to Kenya and Fonz and Big Baby Puffs and all the wonderful Spill fans, Spill heads. So on Spill, there's Bevs and Devs, which is a community of Black techies who've been gathering regularly to just talk about whatever's on our minds technology-wise, which has been really amazing. It's been a really great safe space, especially for me as a woman coming into a space that's predominantly brothers and feeling like really protected and cared for. So yes, I appreciate y'all for that. Yeah, and so that's one of the communities. There's Baddies in Tech. Bevs and Devs is very everybody. Baddies in Tech is meant for Black women, but there's also space for Black, for brothers to join in and support us like in public events. But there's definitely like safe spaces for the baddies. Right? We have a Discord group. So if you are a sister that wants to learn more about technology, you can go to baddiesintech, I think .org or .com. Just Google Baddies in Tech, and it just had a big conference in New York. So there's a lot of, great benefits to being part of that community. What else? Blacks in Technology is another one. This one I think is pretty nationwide, like pretty solidified in terms of chapters nationwide in major cities. They're getting major partnerships now. I saw something about maybe Microsoft or something that they're working with. So, there's folks doing stuff to coordinate Black folks in technology. And aggregating that data is going to be a big part of what we see to accomplish with New World Haven. So newworldhaven.org, go check out the webpage, just get a taste of what it's about and what we intend to accomplish. And there will be more updates published there regularly, and I will continue to talk about it in my content here and elsewhere. All right. And shout out to BSAM, the Black Speculative Arts Movement, a group of technologists and artists who are seriously making major moves. Shout out to Dr. Anderson. Brother Ronaldo, like you have been such an inspiration to so many of us. And it's just amazing what you have been able to do for our community. So well done. Thank you. We appreciate you. Okay. So Jaguar, right? The music industry. So everybody's like, the elephant in the room is Diddy. I can't really go live at a time like this and not talk about it because it is on my mind. And in a way that may be different from a lot of people, because the way that I think about celebrities tends to be different for most people. I don't usually feel enamored by them. I have two real celebrities in my heart. That's probably like Malcolm X and Lauryn Hill. There's others that I really have a lot of love for, but in terms of like me really putting somebody on a pedestal, it's Malcolm X and Lauryn Hill that come to mind, right? And then everybody else is like, I love Kanye's music. Kanye's music is solid. I didn't listen to the last one, really. It got a little too dark for me, so I don't even know how Vultures was, but Kanye is a close second in terms of artistry. I look at Uncle Malcolm. I call Malcolm X Uncle Malcolm. El Haj. I look at him as just a true inspiration, as a Messiah for real, as a God on earth, as a Christ, as a Jesus, and I just hold him in such a high regard, and this is because of character and message and medicine. The medicine that comes through these people for me has been major, has been transformative, has been truly, truly nourishing and fulfilling. And so when I look at other people who are in the public eye, who are not on their level in terms of their commitment to the truth and their pursuit of liberty and justice for all Black people, especially, but for all people, how many times do we see that in the music industry? Like that's very rare, And so to have someone like Jaguar Wright come out and verify a lot of the things that have been rumored in the music industry for decades, to have someone like that expose things that folks haven't been able to really deny or resist, honestly has been really nourishing for myself. Because it's one of those things when you're a hotep, and you see all these things and you tell people about these things, and they look at you like you're crazy. They really are just like, okay, whatever. But it plants a seed. It's worthwhile. It's a worthwhile seed. But generally speaking, in my experience, people have been very like resistant to this type of information, because we want heroes. We want to have celebrities. We want to have people that we look up to. If we trash all the celebrities, who are we gonna look up to? How many role models do we really have in our communities that we can really get excited about and feel honored to call them our leaders? Whew. So Jaguar Wright. Jaguar Wright, Lauryn Hill, Angela Davis is coming up, Asada Shakur, Tupac, Malcolm X. These are your celebrities. Thomas Sankara, Che Guevara. You might say Fidel Castro, it's debatable. Kwame Nkrumah. Nnamdi Azikiwe. Herbert Macaulay. Miriam Makeba. The wives of all the men that I've listed, Funmilayo Ransome Kuti, Fela Kuti. These are your celebrities. These are people who fought for your ass, for dignity, for your skin to be looked upon with dignity and respect. Do you know what our ancestors went through? Like, I really the more I pay attention to that stuff, because I be having to turn it off at times because it can be consuming, and for me especially, it can be like make you want to go do some shit, When I turn it on, I get angry. And I'm like, y'all not mad? Y'all not angry? Y'all not pissed? Y'all not want to break some shit? Like, y'all want to do some shit? Like, y'all don't want to do nothing? And maybe I just haven't been initiated to the groups that are planning these things, But, hey, text me, find me, DM me, because, but what I will say is any movement, revolution, Rhythm Nation that I decide to be a part of, it really has to be organized around spiritual discipline, spiritual cultivation, spiritual self-mastery. and power and the wielding of power, the acquisition and there's a word not coming up, but activation of power. We all have power within us, but our ability to actually utilize it at the highest level is dependent on our ability to activate the power within us. And it's a unique blueprint for each of us individually because of our unique constellations, our unique time and places of birth and circumstances, our karma, whatever we came here with, our OV. So for all of us that have come here of God with a purpose, there is a plan, there is a strategy, there is a way. And there may be multiple ways, but there is a way that you see that you have access to, whether in your dreams, whether in hints, signs, messages, indications, gut feelings. There are things that let you know the way for you and for you to your highest self. And the more you pay attention to those clues and those, those kind of inclinations, the more you feel like the power, the more you feel confident, the more you feel bold to go and create that vision and materialize that vision in the physical. And so when you have that access to your power, you are able to materialize whatever you want. That's literally the fundamental law of reality. Right? And so I keep referencing this Malidoma Somé. I'm going to get his name right because I don't know if I'm getting it right. The book is Of Water and Spirit. And it's a really critical book for us to read as Black people. I really want to start a Black News reading group of Water and Spirit. Why is it taking me this long to see his name? Malidoma Somé. I got it right. Go me. Malidoma Patrice Somé, Of Water and the Spirit. Okay, so yeah, go get that book. Let me know if you've read it or if you get it. Let's talk about it. So the fall of the music industry in Hollywood is really vindicating for me. I mean, I am not somebody who's been very vocal about these things, like some other people like Jaguar and other folks who've been pounding the pavement on this for decades. Much respect and much love and much gratitude to y'all for doing all this to open the public's eyes. Because all those seeds that were planted are blossoming together right now, like exponentially. And so it's just a reminder that it's always worthwhile for you to plant that seed of truth. Because even though it may not be 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 followers, subscribers, likers on today, your truth that you planted will be part of the network of truth that eventually blossoms into liberation, of the minds. As I go through comments on some of the YouTube videos these days, and I see how many people are becoming awakened and how they're just like, oh my God, I didn't know this. I'm so grateful for y'all for revealing this. So many people reinforcing Jaguar's words, talking about how she has never changed her story. Of course, you have the occasional naysayers too, who say that she hasn't, she hasn't achieved enough, and that's why she's miserable and pulling these people down. I do have an inkling about her and Mary J. Blige, though, because there was some interesting things, just the energy that was coming across when she was talking about Mary J. Blige. But, it's like when we enter academia, when we become professional, there is a stigma to talking about celebrity, talking about Hollywood, talking about, that sort of public world. Unless we're posting a picture with them on our Instagram to show off that we were in the same spaces with them, right? It gives us clout. It gives us more social currency, more social power to be able to say that we have worked with this well-known person and that well-known person. And so we have access to opportunity. But herein lies one of the greatest contradictions in Black people and poor people and oppressed people. I'm sure that this is touched on in Pedagogy of the Oppressed. I believe I saw a quote recently on this topic. We aspire to become the oppressor, so many of us, because we don't know what else to aspire to. There hasn't been enough shown to us or given to us to help us to aspire to something truly holy and worthwhile and divine and good for our soul and for our families and our communities' souls. We don't get to see that enough, because most of what comes through our filter of information is about pain and death and suffering and trauma and harm and negativity. But those of us who have curated our filters in such a way, or we've programmed our filters, our algorithms in such a way that 99% of what gets through to us is uplifting, is positive, is reaffirming, is reinvigorating, is reinforcing the positive programming that we've spent so much effort to install in ourselves, in our minds, in our hearts, in our bodies. Let me drink some water. I hope I'm making sense to somebody today. Just a quick plug, norlabs.space if you need data storytelling support, if you are a founder, if you are an ED, if you're a community leader, and you need support telling the story of your organization, if you need support analyzing the data that you may have, or even assessing what sort of data you may need to collect, what sort of data is relevant to the impact that your organization has had in your community. These are really, really powerful narratives for driving revenue and driving investment, right, in your ideas, in your projects, and in your institution. So really, really critical. I talked about it in the previous episode a little bit. I want to talk more about storytelling soon, but we really have to understand the power of storytelling. This is something that is so intrinsic to African culture and African identities. And we do tell stories. We know we have our communal ways of sharing history. And so much of the information knowledge that we have, the data that we have in 2024 is because of our commitment to telling our stories. Such a profound and tremendous and important aspect of Black and Indigenous culture and of any culture, because any group of people is only bound together by their shared history. And if they don't know that shared history, they have no reason to be bound together. And so this is why, if you want to keep a people oppressed, you don't teach them their history, not accurately and not sufficiently. And so the book burnings that we're seeing in Florida and that are probably creeping up in other parts of the country, they are a reflection of that same cycle of book burning that we saw on the ancient continent of Africa, where these Anglo-Saxon terrorists came and stole our information, our data from our ancient books and written in our ancient scripts, stored in our ancient libraries, carved into our ancient monuments. The data that your ancestors have been documenting for thousands of years is mostly held by your oppressor, by the institutions that enforce the kind of policy that creates slave labor, even 100 years plus after slavery was supposed to be ended. Those institutions, private and public, are the ones that fund the processes that create policy that keep you as 3/5 of a human in the US of A. Okay? If you understand what I'm talking about, ask me a question. I think I'm gonna open up a little bit. Ooh, Lord. Jaguar, Wright, music industry, and why we need. So I saw a really great post on LinkedIn, which I shared. Follow me on LinkedIn, follow me on Instagram. I'm all over the web, especially Spill. Spill is my favorite. So if you're not on Spill, get on Spill. I don't think you need an invite code anymore, but if you want one, I sure have some. But get on Spill. If you are a visionary Black person, get on Spill. Definitely want to be there. Okay, so the fall of the music industry is something that so many of us saw coming for decades, but we weren't sure it was going to really happen like this. Like, I'm really like, I just wish I had popcorn, the way I be taking in all this information, because it's vindication. Because when we read scripture that talks about the fall of the enemy and what God will do to the enemy, and we look at these celebrities and we fawn over them and we wish we had their lives because they market it so well. They teach us that their lives are the best by packaging it like art, packaging it like stunning, delicious visuals that you can't resist, you can't turn your eyes from. I mean, it's science to all this. They know how our cognitive minds work. They know how our bodies, our souls, our spirits work. They know what they can show us to make us to feel a certain way. They know how to elicit certain emotion from us. And so they do that effectively, consistently, and thus we worship them. We worship these characters that they have put before us because it is intended for us to worship them. We are programmed to worship them. So the more we consume of their visuals, their aesthetic, of their data, of their story, the more we internalize these ideas as truths. But we have to recognize that these ideas are coming from a source that has its own agenda and its own intention. And you have to question, do their intentions match up with my intentions for myself? And look at their history and where they've put their money and their resources and their efforts, and ask yourself, how well does this organization or this institution's agenda align with the vision that I have for myself and my family and my community? So in the fall of the entertainment industry as we know it, there is a uprising, a new wave, a new energy that gets to take its place. Shout out to D1 for his work. He created a pledge. I cannot remember the name of the pledge. I got to go pull it back up. But if you follow him on Instagram, I believe it's linked to his bio. But he created a pledge for folks to sign who want to commit to making music that will only uplift and not crush our people. When I talk about psychological terrorism, biological terrorism, metaphysical terrorism, y'all not ready. Are you ready? You got to get into Slack for that. I recorded a voice note a couple days ago, probably. It's going to go on Soul Medicine soon. Soulmedicine.substack.com is where I publish my personal writings, random shit from my heart. Soulmedicine.substack.com. On that last recording, I was talking about giving y'all the opportunity to join our Slack community. So if you would like to join our Slack community, you can Cash App $5 to NOIRLabs, NOIRLABS. That'll give you a couple weeks access. Or you can buy more, right? If you go on to norpress.gumroad.com, which is linked from the ads on northpress.org, you will see a link to the Yoruba group chat product. May or may not want to buy that, but that's one way. If you're somebody who's interested in Yoruba practice, that's one way to get access to Slack. But I will be creating a product that others can buy who want to just try out our Slack for a little while, right? But that is where we'll be sharing a little bit more personalized data, a little bit more, I say personalized meaning like more specific to our community's immediate and urgent needs, really creating a safe space. There's a LinkedIn post that I was referencing that I think I got distracted from talking about, where this young man was talking about how we need our own safe spaces where we can talk for real. We could be real honest with each other. And I'm sure they exist on places like Signal. I'm sure that there are some on WhatsApp, but people need to understand that these devices are all compromised. These apps are all compromised. And so if we as Black people want to have critical conversations about our liberation, about what we need to do without concern for any eavesdropping from our enemies, and those who are set out to, who are set on oppressing poor and marginalized people, then we have to build our own technology. We have to build our own devices. We have to get access to our own internet ways. We have to create our own communication strategies and products and tools and systems. I need you to let that sink in, because this is not really optional. We have to create our own communication systems. Now, the good news is that our ancestors, the divine, spirit realm, Holy Spirit, all the spiritual technology we have access to, they have given us the ways to communicate through divine channels without needing to utilize these people's technology. And a lot of us know some of these things in like instinctively. In our melanin, we just know some things. And there's things that we just don't discuss with white folk because we just know that there's ways that we can communicate that don't require us to, use what they use. As we move in that direction, some of us are already there. Some of us are already talking, like we're sending each other messages in the conscious, in the collective consciousness. Like a lot of us are already having conversation and we're finding each other. And so we're starting to get more connected to each other and recognize each other and be more in conversation with each other. So that's already happening at a level, but because it's happening in a way that is a little less controlled, is a little less intentional in terms of like getting us to the immediate results that we want, I see the value in shortening that path and helping us to have those direct conversations in a more direct and intentional way right now. And so there are certain rituals and practices that we can do as a community that helps us to tap into these higher realms and these higher tools for communication. And this is all scripture-based. So one thing about me, I struggle with the Christ that is taught in the church and the Christian faith and the way that it's marketed, but I do not struggle with Christ as a truth. I struggle with how to access that truth. And I'll talk more about that in my essay. I had an Instagram about that. Nobody sharing on Instagram. I had an Instagram about that maybe a couple of days ago. I think it's still up. A lot of my Instagrams don't last because I want to put them in the vault and, have them as part of membership. So I recommend if you want to see that, go look at it sooner than later. But one thing about me is I'm going to put it in Christ because I believe that in a way that I don't yet believe the other things, right? I've had personal encounter with God. I've seen materialization in my prayers in the Christian practice. And I've heard scripture, biblical scripture, more than I've heard anything else as far as spiritual teachings. And so it is ingrained in me. And thus, for me to truly believe something right now, it needs to be in the Bible. It needs to be something I can interpret from the Bible. At the same time, I recognize that some of the stories of the Bible, I don't switch. Like, I don't fuck with the violence. I don't switch the racism, the misogyny. Like, I don't fuck with a lot of the things that are there, right? And so I'm still grappling with my understanding. And a lot of times right now, what I focus on is the metaphysical interpretation of the scriptures that I'm studying. And so that helps me to understand it from a non-literal perspective, understand the Bible from a non-literal perspective, which is something that I think is very important for those of us who want to use the Bible as technology, to see the words as code, or as the word as codes that activate certain realities for us when we have certain understandings. But again, being in practice with it consistently is what helps us to activate that level of power. So all of this to say that what it means for Black folks to have our own technology, to have our own systems, our own communication systems, our own technological systems, our own cultural systems, is that technology has to start within you and me, right? You and I. And I want to talk about race here briefly, because I know for some people, this question, this idea of like Black people having our own thing, how is there ever real separation? For me, I always reference the quote from the indigenous leader whose name I have to master. If you have come because your liberation is tied up in mine. That is really the basis on which I am assessing people, right? Don't come here to be my hero. Are you able to recognize that you need liberation, whatever race you are? Are you able to recognize that you need eternal liberation, like permanent liberation, not just some like laws passed to maybe get you a couple more inches of respect? Do you recognize your immediate and urgent need for liberation? Do you recognize that need in your family? Do you recognize that need in your community? Do you recognize that need in our world? That is the race that I am part of right now, okay? So whatever you identify as, if you serious about liberating niggas, we gotta talk. Because there's things that we're building, and I'm sure there's things that you're building that will complement and support each other. So I want to power my faith because she getting shiny, but let's get to the point. So data. So I talked a little bit about storytelling, and I'm touching on some of the things that we do at NOIR Labs. NOIRLabs.space, you will see that we provide strategic storytelling services. We provide data and tech strategy. I don't know if the data is up there, but tech strategy should be on there. The way that the work is classified or categorized can be a little bit different from what it really is now. So I recommend, if you want our support, go to the form, submit an inquiry, or you can email us at team@noirlabs.org, NOIRLABS.org. Data. So we provide strategic storytelling, data strategy, tech strategy, and team building. Those are our priorities as far as our organizational services, right? In the last episode, I talked about the importance of storytelling. I didn't go as much into the how and the why of the strategies that we use. But what I will say about that is it's not enough to tell your story if you have an end in mind, right? Telling your story is critical. If you do nothing else, telling your story in whatever way you know to do it is better than not telling your story. Because if nobody writes about you, if you don't write about you, 100 years from now, you didn't exist, right? So you telling your story is a critical piece of your legacy. If you are somebody who wants to leave a legacy, making sure that people know what you did while you were here, especially your children. So the responsibility of you as an individual telling your story, the responsibility of your organization telling its story, the responsibility of you to seek out partners and supporters and service providers who can help you tell your story and or your organization's story. The importance of such platforms focusing on the most valuable types of stories. Again, data. Stories are data. So when we talk about data and strategic storytelling, they really go hand in hand, especially when we want to think about quantitative data. So I told you stories are data, they are qualitative data. They may be anecdotal data, depending on who you're talking to, right? Stories are a type of data, but the numbers are quantitative data. Numbers tell their own story. How many of this, and how does it interact with how many of that, right? So an example that's coming to mind, I'm thinking about the Brooklyn Arts Council, I'm thinking about New Haven, thinking about recent projects and recent ideas that I just shared. But If you are telling your story about what you accomplished, I'm gonna use Desiree Gordon as an example. That's my girl. One of my faves. Okay, I'm gonna give you some free smoke, my love. Let's say Desiree is telling her story. So Desiree worked at TCCADI for many years, which is the Caribbean Cultural Center African Diaspora Institute, I believe, is what the acronym stands for. I believe they have a building in Harlem. They're doing amazing work. They've done amazing work for, I want to say 30 years-ish. I don't know the exact year, the exact length of time. She now is the executive director at Tile Cultural Arts Academy, which is launching an app very soon for their community. Before that, she was director of strategy and innovation at the Brooklyn Arts Council. And she was the one that brought NAR Labs on to do the work that we did for them and that we are doing for them. So if Desiree and when Desiree and as Desiree tells her story, she has a couple of daughters, right? As well as other children in the village that she has helped to shepherd, including my girl, Maya. And now she is shepherding so many children as the ED of Tile. There's a few different aspects of her story that she can tell. She could tell the story of her humanness as a little girl growing up in Antigua. Growing up in the Bronx, but coming from Antigua, spending time in Brooklyn, going back to Antigua regularly, how that shaped and influenced her identity and her worldview, right? You can tell the story of her educational trajectory, how she learned what she learned in New York public schools, what she learned being a child of the world, of the Caribbean, and how that wove together to support her in her time at Yale, where she did her undergrad, right? She can tell then the story of what she did at Yale, what she experienced there, what it was to be a Black Antiguan from the Bronx at Yale in those times, right? Because we're talking about late 90s. That's why he's a little older than me. Talking about late 90s, right? So she can talk about that in her trajectory of influencing cultural arts and all of that in the world. But if she wants to tap into data, she wants to estimate the number of people that she's impacted in her different roles. She wants to then look at how the ripple effect of the impact that she had on those individuals may have influenced the local dynamic, the regional trajectory in arts and culture. Did she help to increase the funding that was coming to the organizations that she was working with? Was that part of a larger trend where arts funding was increasing because the recognition, the awareness, especially arts funding to Black and Brown organizations, the recognition and the awareness of the value and the impact was becoming undeniable, right? What are the numbers that illustrate the impact that you have had, and how can you weave those numbers into your qualitative narrative, right? Your quantitative narrative, your qualitative narrative. How can you weave those numbers in? So my point in terms of data and the way that we really want to help organizations is to really sift through your story, right? To understand what data is most valuable. And this is on an internal basis and an external basis, right? So what we've been talking about is primarily external. You giving the world a picture of what you have accomplished, what you have achieved. I talk about the Brooklyn Arts Council all the time and the data that they need to be collecting and amplifying, being related to the people that they have funded, the organizations that they have funded, programs that those people and those organizations have put out into the world, the art that those people and organizations have put out into the world, the impact of those programs and that art, the reverberation, right? How do you design a research strategy that helps you to get that type of data? What kind of questions do you need to ask, and how can you get answers to those questions? And how can you make sure those are the most accurate answers possible, right? These are all of the things that we can help with. And these are all the things that we have done for ourselves in our lives, and we've done bits and pieces of this for different clients, right? But we've done the data piece for Brookline Council already. Literally everything that we're selling right now are things that we've done with them, right? So yeah, I just think it's important for Black folk, Black leaders, Black technologists, Black creatives, Black children. It's so important for us to understand the importance and value of data and to think about data very broadly in terms of the information that we are consuming, the information that we have access to is all data. And what white people have done really well in their quest to colonize everything is that they have done a great job of colonizing data, colonizing information, choosing what information is worthy of knowledge, and filtering that information through their political worldview and their political strategy and intentions for the world. So when we look at their data, the way that they publish data, we have to look at it with scrutiny. We have to look at it with inquiry. We have to look at it with questions. We have to understand that, you know, if the lion tells a tale, the hunter tells a tale, the lion, you know what it is. If the hunter tells a tale, it's going to suit them. It's going to make them look good. But if the lion tells a tale, it's going to be a little different, right? So we have to recognize that most of the information we've been given, thank God we've gotten the kind of education we've gotten in our generation as Black folk globally. But the kind of information we've been given has been very much filtered through an Anglo-Saxon psychological terrorist lens, right? Like they have, as a political system, let's not even talk about individuals and their perceptions and their preferences, as a political system, because we can confidently say that the American political system, the Canadian political system, the European political systems have all been predominantly led by people of European descent, right? With the US and the UK being some of the most prominent and most powerful representatives of that European identity in the political world. Them then being people who descended from Anglo-Saxon regions. Whatever they do to harm Black and brown people, poor people, to create consistent realities of harm, we consider it terrorism. And so if it's done on a psychological level, if it's done on a physical level, it is qualified as such. But it is still terrorism and it is still harm. And the more we recognize that, the less we need to feel like we have to look to them for truth or look to them for vindication or look to them for validation. Because we recognize that we don't really desire to aspire to who they are and what they do. Because we don't want to aspire to become the oppressed. We want to aspire to end the oppression and to eradicate the dynamics that lead to oppression. So data is power. Access to data is power. Janet Jackson said it well in Rhythm Nation, which is a song that I believe we should all listen to and memorize. Listen to the pledge, memorize the pledge. I'm working on it myself. She said it well that, I believe it was in Rhythm Nation or it was on the song that comes after, Living in the World We Did and Make, I gotta remember the name, but it's on the Rhythm Nation album. And it's the next song after Rhythm Nation, after the interlude. But she talks about how knowledge is the most valuable thing and then something that we all need. None of us can get away from the need of knowledge. Nobody, no need for knowledge. Nobody can do without it. And it is the knowledge that we have that influences the type of life we are able to create for ourselves. Our knowledge is what the limits of our imagination and the limits of our knowledge, right? So what we are able to imagine for ourselves, for our families, and for our world depend on the knowledge that we have accumulated. And so the more knowledge that we have, the wider and the broader the knowledge that we have, the wider and broader our imaginaries, the wider and broader our possibilities. And the idea that there are infinite possibilities for any one individual who taps into that awareness is dependent on you having seen the histories, the stories, the data of infinite possibilities, the stories of things that don't seem to match logic, but that are just so far off in different directions that are testimonies that people have experienced. These things become possible for you now, whether you like it or not, because now they're in your imaginary. Right? And so I just want to bring it all together by saying that if we want to live in a culturally just world where our music is high vibrational, where our families are high vibrational, where we live in abundance of joy and love and peace and riches, then we have to get control of our reality. We got to get control of our imagination, of our imaginary. And the things that dominate our imaginary more than anything are the content we consume, the music we consume, we listen to, we digest, the films, the books, the TV shows, the YouTubes, the TikToks, the Instagrams, the tweets. All of this content coming into your imaginary, planting seeds in your subconscious, and telling you what is possible for you. This is all data. Now, data strategy and data analysis comes in when you say, okay, here's how I want to utilize the data. Here's how I want the data to work for me. Here is how I want to identify what data is worthwhile for me. What data is going to help empower me, strengthen me to get me to my North Star. That's me as an organization. That's me as an individual. That's me as a professional. That's me as a mother. That's me as a hairstylist. That's me as a writer. That's me as a dancer. That's me as a technologist. That's me as a medical professional, as a healer, as a spiritualist, as a spiritual teacher, me as a pastor, me as a teacher, educator, a founder, a leader, a fundraiser, whatever role you are playing in your reality, me as an admin, as a clerk, as a scrum master, as a product manager, as an editor, whatever role you are playing, the data that you consume is going to shape your reality, going to shape what's possible for you in the future. The more control you have over that data, the more you are able to shape it to match what truly serves you. The more your imaginary will be implanted with seeds that, or impregnated even with seeds that focus on getting you to your highest destination, your North Star. Okay? So from there, your routes, your actions, your goals, your focus become clearer and clearer and clearer the more you tap into that awareness of what is possible for you. The more you overpower your subconscious, because we're born into this low vibrational reality. For many of us, we're born into struggle and poverty. We're born into a low vibrational reality, okay? That awareness of poverty or lack or disease or unhappiness can permeate our subconscious so thoroughly that the light that comes in to remind us that something better is possible It's just like a little light at first, and then it just sparks a little bit bigger and bigger the more we feed it. And how do we feed it? With those positive stories, those positive possibilities, those positive images, those positive ideas for what we truly want to materialize. Okay, so security is another critical thing. I think that's going to have to be the next episode, because when we're talking about data, we're talking about Black folks getting together to harness our data. We're talking about Black folks coming into communities where we can communicate with each other in privacy. We have to understand security. We have to think about security in metaphysical terms and in technological and tangible terms and technological terms. I'm probably going to come back to each of these topics that I've talked about and drill much deeper as we build Black Genius University. These teachings will definitely be part of the foundation at Black Genius University. But yeah, think about data as something that is truly infinite, that's all around you, that you're constantly receiving. Think about it as something that can be analyzed and processed to serve you, curated for your benefit and for the benefit of your communities. Think of it as something that could be wielded as a shield. Can we use it as a shield, wield it as a weapon? Used to cultivate people within a community, within a family, within a legacy, to help them have a shared identity because of their shared history. And then think about how we need to secure that data and secure our access to it by being very strategic on what tools we use and what processes we use and what technologies we use to be able to create the data, process the data, store the data, share the data, access the data, discuss the data, analyze the data. We have to, if we want to experience sovereignty from these capitalist terrorist systems, we have to think about how we create our own technological infrastructure, cultural infrastructure. And there's some things that have been shared with me that I'm not going to talk about on this. You got to join the Slack for that. So if you want to join the Slack, like I said, the shortest way to do it is to cash out $5 to NARLab. You get a 2-week preview. And just put Slack in the subject line. You can also go to narlabs.org/support. Go to our Donately. That's going to be one of the buttons. It's going to say Donate to NARLabs Foundation. Go to the Donately, put a $5 donation in the Donately, put a note that says you want access to the Slack, and we'll get you the link once we get your donation. If you want to wait a little bit, probably in a couple of days, I'll have a link up on our Gumroad, at nordpress.gumroad.com, where you can purchase like a month membership. And there will be upgrades to that. There'll be different levels in terms of what information, what access you're going to get, because there's lots of different channels in the Slack. There will be questions in terms of what kind of role you get to play in this Slack. And think about this as the foundation for Portal X, because this is really going to be similar in terms of the communication strategy in the technology. So by joining us in Slack, you get a preview. You start to, sharpen your technological muscles a little bit. You start to understand technology a bit better, a bit deeper. So by the time we get to Portal X, you fly, you just fluid, you chilling in there, you having a good old time. Hope this made some sense for you. I hope you were able to understand what I'm getting across, particularly as far as Jaguar, the music industry, and building Black technology through data. Very, very, very important that you as a Black person understand the critical urgency of you getting as familiar with critical technologies today as you can. Critical technologies that will help you to protect yourself, to secure your family and your community in these times, critical technologies that will help you to secure, be a contributor to securing your community beyond just safety, right? Really establishing secure systems that can help us to thrive and move into the future. Because fuck that statistic that says Black median wealth in 2050 will be zero. God forbid. God forbid. God forbid. All right. I appreciate you for watching. I pray that we get it together. And I look forward to hearing.